You wake up at dawn, nestled in a cave or maybe a simple shelter made of branches and animal hides. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of earth and pine. Your bed is a pile of furs, maybe mammoth or deer, softened by moss or dried grass. It's not a mattress, but it's cozy enough after a long day of foraging. The cave walls are rough, maybe etched with simple drawings, handprints, animals, or abstract shapes that tell stories of your people. The fire from last night is down to embers, and your first task is to coax it back to life. You blow gently on the coals, adding dry twigs until flames flicker again, warming your hands and casting soft shadows. Breakfast isn't a bowl of cereal. If you're lucky, there's leftover meat from yesterday's hunt, maybe aurochs or wild boar, roasted over the fire. You chew slowly. It's tough, and your teeth are worn from a lifetime of this. If meat's scarce, you munch on berries, roots, or nuts gathered by the group. Your diet depends on the season and where you are: grassy plains, dense forests, or near a river teeming with fish. You share everything with your small band, maybe 20 or 30 people, because survival hinges on cooperation. No one's hoarding. That's not how you stay alive. The day stretches ahead, and there's work to do. If you're a hunter, you grab your flint-tipped spear or otlotl, a tool that hurls darts with deadly precision. Hunting's not glamorous. It's hours of tracking, reading hoofprints, or waiting silently in the brush. You know the animal's habits. Deer move at dusk. Mammoths stick to open plains. A successful hunt means food for days, plus bones for tools and hides for clothing. If you're not hunting, you're gathering, digging tubers, picking fruit, or collecting reeds for baskets. Everyone contributes, even kids, who learn by watching and helping. Tools are your lifeline. You spend hours knapping flint, striking stones to shape sharp blades or scrapers. It's meditative, the rhythmic chip-chip-chip as flakes fall away. You might carve bone into needles or awls for sewing hides into clothing. Everything's handmade and nothing's wasted. A broken tool becomes something new, a scraper, a point, or even jewelry like a bone bead necklace. Social life is simple but rich. You sit around the fire at night, sharing stories, though your language isn't complex. It's enough to coordinate hunts, teach skills, or pass down myths. Maybe someone hums or taps a rhythm on a hollow log. Music's in its infancy, but it binds you together. You laugh, mourn, and care for each other. If someone's sick, you might use herbs or rituals, though medicine is basic and not everyone makes it. Life's fragile, but you don't dwell on it. The world feels alive. You notice the stars, the wind's patterns, the way animals move. You might paint or carve to honor these forces, leaving marks in caves that will outlast you by millennia. Danger's ever-present, predators like saber-toothed cats or rival groups, but fear doesn't rule you. You're adaptable, resourceful, part of a cycle bigger than yourself. As night falls, you huddle close to the fire, the crackle blending with the sounds of the wild, distant howls, rustling leaves. Your body's tired, but it's a good tired. You curl up in your furs, the warmth of your kin nearby, and drift into sleep, ready to do it all again tomorrow. You're a caveman named Tor, though names in your time are more like sounds, short, guttural calls that carry meaning in their tone. You live in a small band of 25 souls, tucked into a limestone cave near a winding river, its waters glinting under the sun. The cave is your home, its cool walls a refuge from the heat of summer and the bite of winter. The floor is packed earth, softened by layers of hides and woven grasses. At the back, a small alcove holds a pile of treasures: polished stones, a necklace of wolf teeth, and a slab of ochre for painting. The air smells of smoke, earth, and the faint musk of the furs you sleep on. It's early morning, and the world is stirring. You open your eyes to the soft glow of dawn creeping through the cave's mouth. The fire is low, just a few embers winking in the dimness. You kneel, blowing gently, feeding it twigs until it crackles back to life. The warmth spreads, and you feel the stiffness in your muscles ease. Around you, the others are waking, Lyre, your sister, who's already chewing on a strip of dried meat, Kren the elder, whose cough echoes softly, and little Sanaa, a child who's tugging at her mother's arm, eager to explore. Breakfast is simple. Yesterday's hunt brought down a young deer, and the meat was roasted over the fire. You tear off a piece, its smoky flavor mixing with the tartness of berries Lyre gathered from the hillside. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, because food is never guaranteed. The river nearby offers fish, but the season's turning, and the salmon runs are thinning. Later, you'll check the traps you set along the bank, woven nets of sinew and reed, designed to snag fish or small game. For now, you share what you have, passing a handful of nuts to Sanaa, who grins and pops them into her mouth. Today's task is a big one. The band needs tools. The flint blades you use for cutting hides and scraping bones are dulling, and a recent hunt broke 2 spear points. You gather with a few others, Rock, a wiry hunter with keen eyes, and Mira, whose steady hands craft the finest needles. You head to the riverbank, where a pile of flint nodules waits, washed smooth by the current. Napping is slow, deliberate work. You sit cross-legged, a hide draped over your lap to catch the flakes. You strike one stone against another, the sharp crack echoing in the still air. Each hit chips away a fragment, shaping the stone into a blade. It's rhythmic, almost hypnotic, the steady tap-tap-tap blending with the river's murmur. You lose yourself in it, your hands moving by instinct, honed by years of practice. Mira hums softly as she works, carving a bone into a slender awl. She's telling a story, half-spoken, half-gestured, about the great boar her father once hunted. You've heard it before, but it's comforting, like the fire's crackle. Stories bind your group, passing down knowledge of the land, the animals, and the spirits you sense in the world. You don't have gods, not exactly, but you feel the power in the wind, the river, the towering oaks. Sometimes, you paint these forces on the cave walls, red ochre handprints, a bison's curve, or wavy lines that mimic the river's flow. They're offerings, in a way, though you'd never call them that. Midday brings a break. The sun is high, warming your shoulders as you stretch. Sanaa runs up, holding a smooth pebble she found by the water. Tor, look, she says, her voice bright. You smile, turning the stone in your hand. It's perfect for a sling, and you show her how to wrap it in a strip of hide, promising to teach her later. She beams, then darts off to chase a butterfly. Moments like these are brief but precious, reminders that life isn't just survival, but connection. The afternoon turns to hunting. You and Rock head into the forest, spears in hand, moving quietly through the underbrush. The air is thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. You track a herd of red deer, following their prints and the faint trails of broken twigs. Hunting is patience, hours of watching, waiting, reading the land. You crouch behind a boulder, your breath slow, watching a doe nibble at a sapling. Rock signals, his hand steady, but a twig snaps under your foot. The doe bolts, and you both freeze, hearts pounding. No chase today. The herd's gone. You exchange a look with Rock, a silent agreement to try again tomorrow. Failure stings, but you've learned to let it go. The forest gives and it takes. Back at the cave, the others have been busy. Lyre's woven a new basket from reeds, tight enough to hold water. Kren's teaching the younger ones how to twist sinew into cord, strong enough for nets or bindings. The fire's high now, and the smell of roasting fish fills the air. Someone checked the traps, and the haul was good. You sit together, eating, talking, laughing. Kren tells of a time when the river froze solid and the band crossed it to find new lands. His voice is gravelly, soothing, and you feel your eyelids grow heavy. Night falls, and the world quiets. The stars are sharp overhead, a vast map you don't fully understand but love to watch. You wrap yourself in a bear hide, its weight grounding you. The fire's glow dances on the cave walls, illuminating a painting you made last spring, a herd of horses, their lines bold in charcoal and ochre. You don't know why you drew them, only that it felt right. The others are settling in, their breath slowing, the cave filled with the soft sounds of sleep. As you drift off, the rhythm of the day lingers, the crack of flint, the river's flow, the warmth of shared food and stories. Life is hard, but it's yours, woven into the land and the people around you. You close your eyes, the fire's crackle fading, and let the ancient world carry you into dreams. The morning sun filters through the cave's mouth, painting the limestone walls with a golden glow. Tor wakes slowly, his breath visible in the cool air. The fire has dwindled to a faint pulse of embers, and he kneels to coax it back to life, his hands steady as he stacks twigs and blows gently until flames flicker. The warmth spreads, chasing the chill from his fingers. Around him, the band stirs. Lyre, his sister, is already up, sorting a pile of dried herbs she gathered yesterday. Kren, the elder, coughs softly, his weathered hands resting on a staff carved from an oak branch. Little Sanaa, always curious, is poking at a pile of furs, giggling as she finds a feather tucked inside. Today feels different, heavier. The air carries a hint of autumn, a crisp edge that warns of colder days ahead. The band's food stores are low. Yesterday's failed hunt still stings, and the fish traps haven't yielded enough to feed everyone for long. Tor feels the weight of it, though no one speaks it aloud. Survival is a quiet agreement, a shared rhythm that binds the group. He chews on a strip of dried meat, tough and smoky, and passes a handful of hazelnuts to Sanaa, who munches happily. Breakfast is quick, and then the day's work begins. Tor joins a small group heading to the riverbank, where the flint nodules wait. The water gurgles over smooth stones, and the sound is calming, almost like a lullaby. He sits with Rock and Mira, knapping stones into tools. The tap-tap-tap of stone on stone is meditative, each strike shaping a flake into a blade or scraper. Tor's hands move with practiced ease, but his mind wanders. He thinks of the deer that escaped yesterday, their hoof prints fading into the forest. He wonders if the herd has moved to the high meadows, where the grass stays green longer. The thought lingers as he works, the pile of finished blades growing beside him. Mira notices his distraction and nudges him, her eyes warm. "Thinking of the hunt?" she asks, her voice soft. Tor nods, and she offers a small smile. "Tomorrow, we'll find them." Her words are simple, but they steady him. Myra's good at that. Her quiet confidence holds the group together when doubt creeps in. She's carving a bone needle now, her fingers precise, as she etches tiny grooves for grip. Tor watches for a moment, admiring the care she takes. Every tool matters. A single broken needle could mean a torn hide, a lost chance at warmth. By midday, the sun is high, and the group takes a break. Tor stretches, his back aching from hours of sitting. Sanaa runs up, clutching a handful of river pebbles, each one smooth and speckled. "Tor, for slings," she says, her eyes bright. He laughs softly, ruffling her hair, and picks out the best stone, a perfect oval, heavy enough to fly true. "We'll practice soon," he promises, tucking the pebble into his pouch. Sanaa darts off, chasing a dragonfly that hovers over the water. Her joy is a small light in the day, a reminder that life isn't just work and worry. The afternoon calls for a different task. Kren gathers the band to discuss the coming cold. His voice is gravelly but firm, carrying the weight of years spent surviving. The river will freeze soon, he says, pointing to the water with his staff. We need hides, meat, wood. The group nods and plans form. Tor and Rock will scout the high meadows tomorrow, tracking the deer herd. Lyre and Mira will lead a group to gather roots and late-season berries. Others will collect firewood, piling it high to keep the cave warm through winter's bite. The work is endless, but it's shared, and that makes it bearable. As the sun dips low, Tor takes a moment alone. He walks to a quiet bend in the river, where willows droop over the water. He kneels, cupping his hands to drink, the cold shocking his throat. The world feels vast here, the sky stretching wide, the forest humming with life, birds calling, leaves rustling, the distant howl of a wolf. Tor feels small but not afraid. He's part of this, woven into the land like the roots beneath his feet. He picks up a flat stone and skips it across the water, watching the ripples spread and fade. It's a small act, but it grounds him, tying him to this place. Back at the cave, the evening unfolds slowly. The fire is high now, fed with logs hauled from the forest. The band gathers around it, eating a meal of roasted fish and boiled roots, seasoned with Lyre's herbs. The flavors are simple but rich, filling the belly and easing the mind. Kren tells a story of a great mammoth hunt from his youth, his hands moving to mimic the beast's size. The younger ones listen, wide-eyed, while the elders nod, remembering. Tor leans back against the cave wall, the fire's warmth soaking into his skin. He feels the weight of the day lift, replaced by the comfort of togetherness. After eating, Mira brings out a small lump of ochre, grinding it into powder with a stone. She mixes it with water, her fingers stained red, and begins painting on the cave wall. Tonight, it's a deer, its antlers branching like a tree. Tor watches, mesmerized by the way her hands move, bringing the animal to life. He joins her, dipping his fingers into the ochre and adding a line of dots above the deer, stars, maybe, or a herd in the distance. The act feels right, like leaving a piece of himself for the future. Sana watches, too, her small hands itching to try, and Mira lets her add a smudge, laughing softly at the child's enthusiasm. Night deepens, and the cave grows quiet. The fire crackles, casting shadows that dance across the paintings. Tor wraps himself in a bear hide, its familiar weight settling over him like a hug. The others are bedding down, their breath slowing, blending with the sounds of the night, crickets, an owl's call, the river's distant murmur. Tor's eyes trace the cave wall, lingering on the deer painting, its lines glowing in the firelight. He thinks of tomorrow's hunt, the meadows, the hope of a kill. But for now, he lets those thoughts fade, sinking into the rhythm of the cave, the warmth, the soft hum of his people. The first light of dawn creeps into the cave like a shy visitor, touching the painted walls and stirring the embers into a faint glow. Tor opens his eyes, the bear hide slipping from his shoulders as he sits up. The air is cooler now, laced with the promise of autumn's deepening chill. He rubs the sleep from his eyes, feeling the familiar ache in his limbs from yesterday's work. The band is quiet, most still wrapped in their furs, breath soft and even. Lyre is already awake, her silhouette by the fire as she adds a log, the wood popping gently as flames renew. Kren stirs nearby, his cough a low rumble, but he waves Tor off with a nod. Rest a little longer, the elder seems to say. Tor stands, stretching his arms toward the cave's mouth, where the river glints like a silver thread under the rising sun. He steps out, the dew-kissed grass cool under his feet. The world smells fresh, damp earth, fading wildflowers, and the faint tang of wood smoke from last night's fire. He relieves himself behind a cluster of boulders, then kneels by the river to splash water on his face. It's shockingly cold, waking him fully, droplets tracing paths down his chest. He drinks deeply, the water pure and metallic on his tongue. Moments like this are his own, a brief solitude before the day's pull. Back inside, the band is rousing. Sanaa bounds over, her small feet pattering on the earth floor, clutching a stick she's fashioned into a pretend spear. "Hunt today, Tor?" she asks, eyes wide with excitement. He chuckles, ruffling her tangled hair. "Soon, little one. Eat first." Breakfast is sparse but shared. A few roasted tubers from the stores, their earthy sweetness softened by the fire's char, and strips of dried fish caught in the traps. Lyre passes around a gourd filled with water infused with mint leaves she found by the river. Refreshing, a small luxury. Everyone eats in companionable silence, the crackle of the fire the only sound, until Kren clears his throat and speaks of the day's plans. His voice is steady, mapping the tasks like a well-worn path, gathering, scouting, preparing. Tor's morning is for scouting the high meadows with Rock. They set out as the sun climbs, spears slung over their shoulders, pouches filled with water, and a few nuts for the trail. The forest path is familiar, roots twisting like old fingers across the ground, leaves turning gold at the edges. Birds flit overhead, their calls a morning chorus, sharp trills and warbles that echo through the trees. Rock leads, his steps silent, eyes scanning for signs. A snapped twig, a fresh dropping, the faint musk of deer. They climb steadily, the air thinning, the river shrinking to a distant murmur below. Sweat beads on Tor's brow, but the effort clears his mind, each breath syncing with the world's quiet pulse. The meadows unfold at last, a vast bowl of grass, swaying in the breeze, dotted with late-blooming flowers in purples and yellows. They crouch low, moving like shadows, and there, hoof prints, fresh and deep, leading to a copse of birch trees. Rock signals, and they wait, heart steady, watching. A buck emerges, its antlers branching wide, nibbling at the tender shoots. Tor's grip tightens on his spear, but patience rules. They circle slowly, using the wind to mask their scent, the grass whispering against their legs. The buck lifts its head, ears twitching, but doesn't bolt. In a fluid motion, Rock hurls his otlotl dart, the wood whipping through the air with a low whistle. It strikes true, and the buck staggers, Tor finishing with his spear. The kill is clean, a gift from the land. They work together to field dress the animal, their knives, flint edges honed sharp, slicing through hide and sinew. Blood warms their hands, the metallic scent mixing with the grass's green tang. They quarter the meat, wrapping portions in the buck's own hide for the carry back. Rock ties the antlers to his belt, a trophy and tool in one. The sun is midway now, and they rest briefly, sharing the nuts and water, the meadow's peace settling over them like a blanket. Tor feels a surge of gratitude, not spoken but felt, the hunt's success a thread in the band's fragile web. The return is slower, laden with the kill's weight. They pause often, adjusting the bundles on their shoulders, talking in low tones about the meat's uses. Roasting for the fire, drying for winter, bones for tools. By late afternoon, they reach the cave, the band greeting them with quiet cheers. Mira takes the hide, her hands quick as she begins scraping it clean. Lyre helps portion the meat, skewering chunks for the fire. The air fills with the sizzle of fat dripping, the savory aroma drawing everyone close. Sanaa watches the flames, mesmerized, as Tor carves a small piece for her, tender, juicy, a rare treat. Evening deepens into a ritual of fullness. The band eats heartily, the buck's meat tenderized by the day's freshness, paired with berries and roots. Stories flow like the river. Rock recounts the hunt with gestures, exaggerating the buck's size to make Sanaa laugh. Kren adds wisdom, speaking of seasons past when hunts like this saved them from hunger's edge. Tor listens, his belly full, the fire's warmth seeping into his bones. He feels connected, part of something larger, the people, the land, the endless cycle. As stars prick the sky, Mira grinds more ochre, and the group adds to the cave's walls. Tonight, it's the buck, antlers sweeping, body strong, painted in reds and blacks. Tor contributes a line for the meadow's grass, his fingers steady. Sanaa dabs a spot of yellow, a flower perhaps, her touch childlike and pure. The paintings grow, layer upon layer, a silent history etched in stone. Night wraps the cave in quiet. The fire banks low, embers glowing like distant eyes. Tor settles into his furs, the day's labors melting away. The band's breaths form a soft chorus, the river's song a lullaby from outside. He closes his eyes, the buck's image lingering, a symbol of provision. Tomorrow brings more, always more, but for now, rest claims him, deep and untroubled. The cave awakens to a misty morning, the kind where fog clings to the river like a soft veil, muffling the world's edges. Tor stirs beneath his bare hide, the fur's coarse warmth a familiar anchor. The embers from last night's fire glow faintly, casting a ruddy light on the painted walls. The buck from yesterday's hunt now joined by a swirl of ochre waves, Myra's addition to mimic the river's flow. He rises quietly, joints creaking like old branches in the wind, and tends the fire. His breath fans the coals, twigs crackling as flames lick upward, chasing the damp chill. The scent of charred wood fills the air, mingling with the earthy dampness seeping from the stone. Lyre is up next, her movements efficient as she sorts the herbs by the fire's edge, dried leaves for teas that soothe coughs, roots for poultices against wounds. Kren watches from his spot, his staff propped nearby, eyes sharp despite the lines etched deep into his face. Sanaa, ever the spark, tumbles out from her mother's furs, rubbing sleep from her eyes and yawning wide. "Meet today?" she asks Tor, her voice a sleepy murmur. He nods, smiling as he hands her a small, charred bone from the buck, not clean but still a toy in her hands. Breakfast follows, chunks of venison, roasted slow over the renewed flames, their juices sizzling softly. Paired with handfuls of wild onions Lyre dug up near the riverbank, the meal is hearty, fueling the body for the day's demands. The band eats in a loose circle, passing portions without words. The fire's pop and the distant bird calls the only interruptions. Today marks a shift. The first true bite of autumn has arrived, leaves curling at the edges like whispered secrets. Kren calls a gathering as the sun burns through the fog, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Winter whispers," he says, gesturing to the sky where clouds gather low. We move soon. The band murmurs agreement. The cave has served them well through summers past, but as the river slows and the game thins, they must follow the herds to warmer valleys. Plans weave together. Scouts to map the path, gatherers to stock dried meats and berries, toolmakers to sharpen spears for the journey. Tor feels the pull of it, a mix of reluctance and resolve. The cave's walls hold memories, handprints faded but enduring, yet the land calls them onward. Tor's task is mending and preparing. He joins Mira by the river, where the water runs clearer now, reflecting the turning leaves in shades of amber and rust. They work on hides, the buck's skin stretched taut on a frame of branches, Mira scraping away the last bits of flesh with a flint tool. The rhythm is soothing. Scrape, pause, scrape, the hide softening under their hands. Tor sews edges with bone needles threaded in sinew, stitching it into a new cloak for Sanaa, who watches with wide eyes, mimicking the motions with a stick and leaf. For cold nights, Mira explains, her voice soft over the water's gurgle. They talk little, but the silence is companionable, broken only by the occasional splash of a fish or the rustle of wind through the willows. Tor's mind drifts to the journey ahead, crossing ridges, fording streams swollen by early rains, watching for signs of other bands. Rivals could mean trouble, but alliances have formed before, trades of flint for furs under truce fires. Midday brings a communal effort. The band hauls wood from the forest's edge, axes of stone and antler thudding against trunks, the sharp thwack echoing like a heartbeat. Tor swings alongside Rock, their breaths sinking with the labor, sweat tracing paths down their backs despite the cooling air. They drag fallen branches back to the cave, piling them high in a lean-to shelter. Lyre leads the women and children in gathering, baskets brimming with acorns, their bitter shells to be leached in the river for flour. Mushrooms clustered at tree bases, earthy and spongy, and late apples from a wild grove, tart bursts of juice that stain fingers red. Sanaa helps, her small basket overflowing, chattering about the magic fruits that grow without tending. The work binds them, a tapestry of motion and purpose, laughter bubbling when a branch snaps unexpectedly or an apple rolls free. As the sun arcs toward afternoon's end, a small drama unfolds. Kren's cough worsens, a deep rattle that worries the group. Lyre brews a tea from her herbs, willow bark for fever, elderberries for strength, its steam rising like a healing mist. Tor sits with the elder, holding a gourd to his lips, feeling the fragility of life in this moment. Kren grips his arm, eyes meeting Tor's. "You lead soon," he rasps, a passing of the unseen torch. Tor nods, throat tight, but the words settle like stones in a riverbed, unmovable, shaping the flow. The band gathers around, hands on shoulders, a silent circle of support. No tears, but the closeness speaks volumes, the fire they light in the evening a beacon against the gathering dusk. Supper is a feast of preparation, venison stewed with roots and berries in a clay-lined pit, heated by hot stones. The flavors meld slowly, savory and sweet, filling the cave with warmth and aroma. They eat by firelight, stories unfolding like smoke. Rock speaks of a winter past, trapped in a snowbound valley, how they sang to the spirits for sun. Mira adds gestures, her hands painting the tale in air. Sanaa curls against Tor, her head heavy on his lap, eyelids drooping as the words wash over her. The paintings on the walls seem to listen, the deer, the river, now a new figure, a line of people marching, ochre footprints trailing behind. Twilight deepens, and the band turns to the journey's rites. They grind ochre and charcoal, fingers dipping to add to the walls, a map of sorts, ridges and rivers in simple lines. Tor traces a path he remembers from childhood wanderings, his touch reverent. Sanaa adds a smudge of yellow for the sun, her contribution pure and hopeful. The cave feels fuller now, layered with their marks, a legacy pressed into stone. Night falls heavy, the first stars piercing the chill air like icy sparks. The fire banks to embers, the band settling into furs, breaths a soft symphony. Tor lies awake a moment longer, the weight of Kren's words lingering, the cave's cool breath on his skin. The river murmurs outside, a constant companion, and the wind carries hints of distant rains. He closes his eyes, the day's labors dissolving into the dark, the promise of movement, of new lands, new fires, a quiet comfort. Sleep comes, deep as the earth itself. A veil of frost greets the dawn, the first delicate crystals tracing the cave's mouth like fragile lace spun by the night. Tor awakens to the subtle crunch underfoot, his breath clouding the air as he pushes aside the bare hide. The embers are cold now, a gray ash mound that he stirs with a stick, scattering sparks like reluctant stars. He gathers tinder, dry moss from the cave's crevices, bark stripped from fallen twigs, and strikes flint against pyrite, the sharp snap birthing a flame that he nurses patiently. The fire revives, its warmth a tentative promise against the encroaching cold, and the cave fills with the acrid tang of awakening wood. Lyre huddles nearby, her fingers numb as she packs herbs into a woven pouch, bundles of nettle for stings, yarrow for bleeding, all tied with sinew cords. Kren lies still, his breathing shallow but steady after last night's tea, a faint color returning to his cheeks. Sanaa peeks from her furs, her nose pink from the chill, and Tor hands her a warmed stone wrapped in hide to clutch like a tiny hearth. Breakfast is frugal, the last of the venison jerky chewed slowly, supplemented by acorn mush ground fine and boiled into a thick porridge. The band eats in hushed tones, the frost's hush amplifying every swallow, every shift of hide. Eyes meet across the fire, a silent acknowledgement. Today they leave. The migration begins at mid-morning, when the sun has melted the frost's edges, but not its bite. Kren is helped to his feet by Rock, the elder leaning on his staff, determination etching his face. The band forms a loose line, burdens slung across backs, baskets of dried meat and berries, rolled hides for shelters, bundles of tools and ochre. Tor carries the heaviest load, a frame of antlers and poles for a travois, dragging behind him like a faithful shadow. Sanaa walks between him and Mira, her small hand in Myra's, chattering about the big walk, as if it's an adventure from Kren's tales. The cave recedes behind them, its mouth a dark eye watching their departure, the paintings within now guardians of their stories. The path winds downward from the limestone cliffs, following the river's silver thread through a valley cloaked in autumn's palette, oranges bleeding into reds, the ground carpeted in fallen leaves that crunch softly underfoot. Tor leads the scouts, his eyes tracing the land's language. Deer tracks veering east, promising richer hunting grounds, berry bushes stripped bare by birds, urging haste. The air is alive with the season symphony, geese honking overhead in ragged V's, their wings cutting the crisp blue, squirrels chattering from oaks, hoarding nuts in frantic blur. The band moves at a steady plod, pauses for water at clear streams, where fish dart like silver arrows beneath the surface. Mira points out edible greens along the way, dandelion leaves for bitterness, clover for sweetness, her knowledge a quiet gift that lightens the loads. Hours stretch into the afternoon, the sun a pale disk sliding westward. They ford a shallow brook, water icy against their calves, laughter rippling when Sanaa splashes playfully, her mother scooping her up with a mock scold. Kren falters once, his staff sinking into mud, but the group circles him, hands linking to steady the path. Tor feels the elders gaze on him, a weighty trust passed in that moment. They climb a gentle ridge, the view unfolding like a painted scroll, distant plains dotted with herds, a forest fringe promising shelter. Hope stirs, a warm undercurrent to the chill. By dusk, they reach a suitable hollow, a natural overhang in a sandstone outcrop, its floor dry and wide enough for all. The band unloads with practiced grace, hides unrolled into sleeping nests, the fire kindled in a ring of stones. Tor and Rock forage for fresh wood, their axes ringing against branches, the twilight air filling with the scent of pine resin. Supper simmers in a hollowed log, the last venison scraps with foraged mushrooms and roots, stewed over flames that leap high against the gathering dark. The flavors are deep, earthy, a balm after the day's march. They eat in the overhang shelter, the wind moaning softly outside, stories unfurling to chase the shadows. Lyra recounts a migration from her youth, crossing frozen tundras where the stars seemed close enough to touch. Sanaa, eyelids heavy, adds her own embellishments, giant birds carrying them, rivers of honey, drawing chuckles that warm like the fire. As night cloaks the land, Mira unpacks the ochre, and the band marks their new refuge. Fingers dip into the red paste, tracing handprints on the sandstone, each a claim, a prayer for fortune. Tor adds a line of marching figures, small and linked, echoing their journey. Sanaa presses her palm beside his, the print tiny and perfect, a bridge between generations. Kren watches, his voice a murmur. The land remembers. The paintings glow in the firelight, alive with their essence. The stars will overhead, sharp and myriad, the Milky Way a river of light mirroring the one they left behind. The band settles, furs drawn tight, breaths sinking in the quiet. Tor lies on the edge, the overhangs curve above him like a protective arm. The day's echoes linger, the crunch of leaves, the splash of brooks, the steady thrum of footsteps. He thinks of the cave far behind, its walls holding their past, and this new shelter holding their now. Sleep tugs at him, gentle as the wind's lullaby, the fire's embers a soft heartbeat in the dark. The night under the overhang passes in a hush broken only by the wind's low moan through the sandstone cracks and the occasional shift of hides in sleep. Tor dreams fitfully of rivers freezing mid-flow, herds thundering across endless plains, the cave's paintings bleeding into the sky like living ink. Dawn arrives pale and reluctant, the sun a diffused glow filtering through high clouds, casting the world in muted silvers and grays. He wakes to the chill seeping from the stone floor, his fingers stiff as he reaches for the fire's remnants. The embers are barely alive, a faint red pulse that he revives with careful breaths and a handful of dry grass scavenged from the hollow's edges. Flames take hold slowly, their crackle a small victory. warming the air with wisps of smoke that curl upward like seeking spirits. Lyre is the first to stir fully, her eyes shadowed from the night's watch over Kren, who slept unevenly but through. She brews a thin broth from the last of the stew's leavings, bones simmered overnight to extract every morsel of nourishment, its faint savor a reminder of the buck's gift. Sanaa emerges from her nest of furs, cheeks flushed, and clings to Tor's leg, her small body a bundle of warmth against the cold. "More walking?" she whispers, and he nods, offering her a sip from the gourd, the liquid steaming gently. The band rises piecemeal, faces etched with the migration's quiet toll, Rock flexing his shoulders from the previous day's load, Mira folding hides with deliberate folds, her hands already stained from yesterday's ochre. Breakfast is sparse, porridge thickened with crushed acorns, a few dried berries to sweeten the bitterness, but shared with the ritual passing of the gourd, binding them in the morning's fragile light. Kren emerges last, supported by his staff, his cough a hollow echo in the overhang. He surveys the group with a nod, his voice rasping but resolute. The valley calls. No maps exist in their world, only memory and signs. The sun's arc, the stars' patterns, the land's own etchings of streams and ridges. Tor takes point today, his spear a steady companion, eyes scanning the horizon where the forest thins into rolling hills. The band sets out as the mist lifts, footsteps muffled on the leaf-strewn path, the overhang shrinking behind them like a shed skin. Burdens are redistributed, children on the strongest backs, tools bundled tight against the damp. Sanaa rides briefly on Myra's shoulders, her laughter a bright thread in the gray morning, pointing at a flock of migrating birds wheeling southward like dark arrows. The trail descends into a wooded ravine, oaks and beeches arching overhead in a cathedral of fading green, their branches heavy with a season's sigh. The air grows thicker here, scented with decaying leaves and the faint rot of fallen fruit, a bounty and a warning. Tor pauses to mark a bent sapling, a sign for return if needed, while Rock scouts ahead for game trails. They find signs, a fresh hare's burrow, rabbit scat dotted with berry seeds, and set simple snares of twisted vine, quick work born of habit. The ravine's floor is a mosaic of moss and fern, soft underfoot, but slick with dew. One of the younger women slips, twisting an ankle, and the band halts. Mira kneels, binding it with strips of hide and a poultice of crushed plantain leaves from her pouch, the green ooze drawing out the swelling. "Rest here," Tor says, and they do, sharing water and stories to pass the time, tales of hidden springs that bubble warm in winter, or caves where echoes sing back songs. Midday finds them climbing again, the ravine opening to a windswept plateau where grasses whip like waves in the breeze. The sun breaks through fully now, a welcome heat on chilled skin, illuminating distant herds, bison, perhaps, their dark forms a smudge on the plain. Hunger gnaws sharper, the morning's meal a memory, but foraging lightens the step. Wild carrots tugged from the earth, their dirt-sweet crunch a momentary feast, rose hips pricked from thorny bushes, tart juice bursting on tongues. Sanaa collects them in her small hands, offering the ripest to Kren, who chews slowly, his eyes crinkling in rare amusement. The plateau's vastness stirs something in Tor, awe at the world's scale, the thin line between provision and peril. He spots a lone aurochs grazing apart from the herd, its massive form a potential prize, but the band presses on. Winter waits for no single hunt. Afternoon wears into a labored rhythm, the path dipping into a birch grove where white trunks stand like ghosts against the understory's gold. Rain threatens, clouds boiling low, and they quicken, seeking shelter in a cluster of boulders forming a natural windbreak. The storm breaks sudden and fierce, sheets of water drumming the earth, turning the ground to mud that clings like clay to their feet. Huddled together, hides drawn over heads, they wait it out, Lyre humming a low tune, wordless and ancient, that soothes the children's whimpers. Kren shares a memory of a greater flood, waters rising to swallow valleys, how the band clung to high ground and sang to the sky for mercy. The rain passes as swiftly as it came, leaving the air washed clean, the grove sparkling with droplets that catch the returning light like scattered jewels. By evening, they reach the valley's lip, a broad basin cradled by low hills, its floor a promise of river and game. Smoke from a distant fire curls faint on the horizon. Other wanderers, perhaps, but no threat yet discerned. The band claims a site by a copse of willows, their roots drinking from a trickling stream. Fires are kindled in pits lined with stones, the wood they carried now joined by fallen branches, flames roaring high against the damp. Supper is a communal craft, hare from the snares roasted on spits, its meat lean but flavorful, wrapped in wild garlic leaves. Rose-hip tea simmered to a rosy brew that warms from within. They eat as the sun dips, colors bleeding across the sky. Crimson, violet, the first stars pricking through. Stories circle the fire. Mira speaks of a valley spirit that guards the herds, her gestures painting its form in shadow and light. Sanaa, belly full, adds her own twist, a friendly giant who shares his berries, her voice fading into yawns. Twilight deepens, and the ochre comes out again, fingers tracing the boulders' faces. Tor etches a bison outline, its hump broad and powerful, while others add rivers and footprints, mapping their path in red and black. Kren's handprint goes last, pressed firm beside the young ones, a circle of endurance. The paintings seem to breathe in the firelight, alive with the day's journey, the ravines green, the plateau's wind, the rain's silver lash. Night settles thick, the valley a bowl of darkness lit by their solitary glow. The band nests in the willow's shelter, furs layered thick, the streams murmur a constant lullaby. Tor lies gazing at the stars, their cold fire a map of unseen paths, the day's aches dissolving into the earth's cool hold. The migration's pull lingers, a quiet current, but rest claims him now, deep as the valley's hidden roots. The valley cradles the dawn in a hush of silver mist, the streams trickle threading through the willows like a vein of liquid glass, its surface skimmed with the night's faint rime. Tor emerges from his fur nest as the first light pierces the canopy, the air sharp with the scent of wet bark and distant earth turned over by burrowing creatures. His breath hangs in clouds, a fleeting ghost, as he kneels by the fire pit's ashes, sifting through the cold remnants with calloused fingers. A buried ember stirs under his coaxing, a puff of air, a pinch of tinder from shredded bark, and the flame awakens, tentative licks giving way to a steady bloom. He feeds it branches snapped from the copse's undergrowth, the wood's green snap yielding to the fire's insistent hunger, warmth radiating outward in slow waves that thaw the morning's grip. Lyre moves like a shadow beside him, her pouches already slung for the day's forage, eyes scanning the mist for signs of edible bounty. Kren rests against a willow trunk, his staff a crooked extension of his arm, watching the flames with a gaze that holds the weight of uncounted winters. Sanaa stirs last among the young, her curls matted with dew, and toddles to Tor, pressing her cold nose against his side for warmth. He wraps an arm around her, sharing the fire's heat, and offers a sliver of the hare's remains from last night, tough but nourishing, chewed to softness between his teeth before passing it to her small mouth. The band gathers gradually, faces emerging from hides like boulders from fog, Rock stretching his limbs with a low groan, Mira folding the night's coverings with rhythmic precision. Breakfast unfolds in the circle's quiet ceremony, acorn cakes patted flat and toasted on hot stones, their nutty char mingling with sips of stream water chilled to the bone. Portions circle the group, hands brushing in the exchange, a wordless reaffirmation of the bond that migration forges anew each dawn. This valley, with its encircling hills like watchful sentinels, offers a pause in the wandering, a chance to root before winter's full descent. Kren's counsel comes as the mist burns off, his voice a gravelly thread weaving through the morning air. Settle, but watch. The band disperses into tasks, a living web of motion. Tor and Rock venture to the stream's bend, where the water pools deep enough for fish, their spears tipped with bone points glinting in the slanting light. The current runs swift here, silver flashes darting beneath the surface. Trout, sleek and wary, schooled in the eddies. Tor wades in ankle-deep, the cold a numbing bite that sharpens his focus, his throws measured arcs that pierce the water with muffled thuds. One strikes true, the fish thrashing silver against the shallows. Rock nets another with a woven scoop of reeds, their haul modest but vital. They clean the catch on the bank, flint knives flashing in precise strokes, guts offered to the stream as an unspoken tribute, the metallic tang of blood blending with the water's clean rush. Mira leads the gatherers into the hill's foothills, baskets slung low, where the underbrush yields its autumn secrets, tubers swollen underground, pried free with digging sticks carved from antler. Clusters of sloes, dark and puckered, promising a tart preserve against hunger's lean months, feathers from a molted pheasant, soft iridescence for fletching arrows or trimming cloaks. Sanaa trails her, small feet imprinting the soft soil, her basket a toy overflowing with leaves and stones that catch her eye, smooth quartz veined with rose, a spiral shell washed from the stream. Lyre tends Kren in the camp, grinding herbs into pastes for his chest's ache, the mortar's steady thump-thump a heartbeat syncing with the fire's crackle. The others mend and craft, hides stretched on frames to cure, sinew twisted into cords strong as roots, flint nodules napped into blades that sing with each precise strike. The valley hums with their labor, a symphony of subtle sounds, the rustle of leaves underfoot, the scrape of stone on hide, the distant call of a hawk wheeling high. Midday crests with the sun a pale orb overhead, its light filtered through gathering clouds that hint at snow's approach. The band reconvenes by the fire, the fish roasted whole on green sticks, their skins crisping to a golden flake, flesh steaming with river-fresh sweetness. Roots are boiled in a clay pot nestled in embers, their starchiness a bulwark against the chill, seasoned with foraged saltweed pinched from the stream's edge. They eat in the willow's dappled shade, juices dripping from chins, conversation flowing in fragments, Rock describing a bison track spotted on the ridge, Mira pondering the feather's flight paths as omens of wind shifts. Sanaa demonstrates her magic stone, skipping it across a still pool, ripples spreading like laughter. Kren chews slowly, his presence a quiet anchor, eyes tracing the horizon where the hills fold into mystery. Afternoon deepens the valley's embrace, the air turning leaden with the promise of flurry. Tor takes Sanaa for a lesson in the slingshot, fashioning one from a Y-shaped branch and a pouch of supple leather. He shows her the load, the rose hip as projectile, the swing, the release, the stones were cutting air to plunk against a target tree. Her first tries go wide, giggles bubbling, but persistence brings a hit, her cheer a spark that warms the graying sky. Nearby, the band prepares for the cold. A lean-to rises from willow poles lashed with vine, thatched with reed mats and hides to form walls against the wind. Tools are oiled with animal fat rendered from the hair, blades wrapped in oiled cloth to fend off rust's creep. Lyre weaves a new basket, her fingers flying in intricate patterns, while Mira etches a bone pendant, a simple spiral evoking the stream's curve, for Sanaa's neck, a talisman against the dark months. As twilight bleeds purple across the hills, the first flakes drift down, lazy and crystalline, dusting the willows like powdered sugar. The band huddles closer to the fire, its blaze fed high with gathered wood, flames dancing in defiance of the settling white. Supper simmers. Fish stew thickened with tubers, sloes crushed into a sharp sauce that cuts the richness. They eat with hands cupped against the cold, warmth seeping from bowl to belly. Stories unfurl as the snow thickens, Kren weaving yarn of a winter cave where the band danced with shadows to summon spring, his gestures broad despite his frailty. Mira adds the pheasant's feathers to the tail, imagining them as wings for the dancers. Sanaa, eyes wide, insists on a song, her high voice lilting a nonsense melody that the group echoes, harmony rough but heartfelt. Night falls in earnest, the valley a white-shrouded bowl under a canopy of stars veiled by clouds. The lean-to shelters them now, furs piled deep, the fire banked to embers that glow like buried suns. Ochre is unpacked one last time, fingers tracing the snow-dusted boulders, snowflakes melting into red streaks, handprints blurred but bold. Tor adds a willow branch, its curve a nod to their fragile home. Sanaa presses a feather beside it, light as a breath. The paintings hold the day's essence. The streams bend, the fishes leap, the first snows hush. The band settles, breaths fogging the air within the shelter, the streams murmur muffled by the snowfall. Tor lies with Sanaa curled against him, her small form a steady warmth, the day's echoes fading. The spears thrust, the stones skip, the weave of baskets and bonds. The snow piles soft outside, a blanket on the world, and sleep descends, profound and insulating. The valley wakes under a mantle of snow, the dawn a pale shimmer that barely pierces the heavy clouds sagging overhead. Tor stirs in the lean-to, the air sharp enough to bite his lungs as he shifts beneath the layered furs, their weight a comforting press against the cold. The fire is a faint ember pulse, nearly smothered by the night's chill, and he rises to tend it, his fingers clumsy with frost as he breaks brittle twigs and scatters them over the coals. A spark catches, then a flame, small but defiant, its heat a lifeline in the snowbound world. The scent of burning willow fills the shelter, mingling with the crisp tang of ice that clings to everything, hides, breath, the woven mats that form their walls. Lyre is awake beside him, her breath clouding as she checks the herb pouches, fingers tracing the sinew ties to ensure no damp has crept in. Kren lies bundled nearby, his cough softer now but still a shadow on his strength, his eyes following the fire's dance with a quiet intensity. Sanaa burrows deeper into her mother's furs, her small snores a soft counterpoint to the wind's low howl outside. The band rouses slowly, faces pale in the dim light, hands reaching for the fire's warmth as if drawn by instinct. Breakfast is a ritual of scarcity, a thin gruel of acorn flour boiled in the clay pot, its nutty warmth eked out with a few dried sloes, their tartness a faint spark on the tongue. They pass the pot in silence, each sip a shared thread, the fire's crackle weaving through their breaths like a song without words. Winter has settled in earnest, the valley a white expanse where the stream runs sluggish under a skin of ice. Kren speaks as the light strengthens, his voice a weathered anchor. Stay close, work small. The migration's pause demands new rhythms, hunkering down, preserving strength, watching the land's subtle cues. Tor takes the lead for the day's tasks, his spear slung but idle, the hunt deferred for now. Instead, he and Rock venture to check the snares set in the willow copse, their boots, hide wrapped tight with cord, crunching through the snow's crust. The traps yield a single hair, its fur white as the drifts, a lean prize they gut, and skin on the spot. The knifes glide a meditative act. The pelt is tucked into Tor's pouch for Sanaa's cloak, the meat destined for the evening pot, every scrap a bulwark against hunger's slow creep. Mira and Lyre guide the gatherers within the valley's bounds, their steps cautious on the icy slopes. They seek winter's hidden gifts, bark peeled from birch for kindling, its inner layer bitter but chewable in lean times, lichen scraped from rocks, to be boiled into a starchy paste, pine needles plucked for a tea that staves off the cold's ache. Sanaa trails them, her small hands mittened in fur scraps, collecting twigs for the fire, her chatter muffled by the snow's hush. She finds a frozen berry, black and shriveled, and offers it to Mira, who accepts it with a smile, tucking it into her pouch for later. The women move like wraiths in the white, their baskets filling slowly, Each find a small defiance of the season's austerity. Back at the lean-to, the band turns inward, crafting in the fire circle. Tor sits with Kren, shaping a new spear point from flint, the chip-chip of stone on stone, a steady beat that fills the silence. Kren's hands, though slowed by age, guide Tor's strikes, correcting angles with a tap or a grunt, their work a dialogue of motion. Mira threads bone needles with sinew, mending a torn hide, her stitches tight and even, while Lyre weaves a net from dried reeds, its mesh fine enough to trap smaller fish if the ice breaks. The children huddle close, Sanaa teaching the younger ones to braid cord from plant fibers, her fingers clumsy but patient. The shelter hums with these small labors, the air thick with a sense of resin, fur, and the faint musk of bodies pressed close for warmth. Noon brings a brief brightening, the clouds parting to spill weak sunlight across the snow, casting long shadows from the willow's bare fingers. The band pauses to eat, a handful of lichen paste, bitter but filling, shared from a wooden bowl carved from a storm-felled branch. They stretch their legs, stamping to keep blood flowing, and Tor leads a short trek to the stream's edge, where the ice is thin enough to crack with a stone. They fill gourds with water, its chill numbing lips, and Tor shows Sanaa how to skim the surface for fish stunned by the cold, though none appear today. The effort warms them, laughter breaking when Rock slips and lands in a drift, his mock indignation drawing grins. As dusk creeps in, the snow begins anew, flakes swirling like ash from an unseen fire. The band huddles tighter, the lean-to's walls reinforced with fresh snow packed against the mats to block the wind. Supper simmers in the clay pot, the hare, its bones lending depth to a broth thickened with pine needles and a pinch of saltweed, the aroma a promise of fullness. They eat slowly, savoring each spoonful, the fire's glow painting their faces in shifting golds. Stories rise with the steam, Kren recalling a winter when the band burned bones for heat, the marrow's fat sustaining them through weeks of ice, Mira adding a tale of a star that fell, lighting the snow with a fleeting fire. Sanaa, nestled in Tor's lap, spins her own story of a snow spirit who dances with the wind, her words slurring as sleep tugs at her. Night cloaks the valley in a deep, starless black. The snows fall a muffled hymn that buries the world in quiet. The band paints their shelter's inner stones, fingers dipping into ochre warmed by the fire. Red for life, black for night. Tor traces a hare's form, its ears sharp against the stone's curve, while Lyre adds a swirl of snowflakes, delicate as breath. Sanaa, half asleep, presses a tiny handprint, her mark a fleeting claim on eternity. Kren watches, his silence a benediction, the paintings a shared pulse of their survival. The lean-to grows still, the fire banked to embers that pulse like a sleeping heart. Furs are drawn tight, bodies curled close, the stream's faint gurgle a distant lullaby beneath the ice. Tor lies with Sanaa's weight against him, her breaths a soft rhythm. The day's labors fading into the snow's embrace, the snares yield, the flint's sharp song, the warmth of shared broth. The valley holds them, vast and unyielding, yet softened by their fire's defiance. Sleep rises like the tide, deep and inevitable, pulling him under with the weight of winter's quiet promise. The dawn creeps into the valley with a reluctant glow, the sky a bruised gray that barely parts the snow-heavy clouds. Tor stirs in the lean-to, the fur's warmth a thin shield against the cold that seeps from the frozen earth. His breath clouds the air, a fleeting mist, as he shifts to check the fire, its embers a faint red pulse buried in ash. He coaxes them to life with a handful of pine needles and slivers of bark, the flames rising in hesitant flickers, their crackle a whisper against the snow's oppressive hush. The scent of resinous smoke fills the shelter, sharp and grounding, mingling with the frost's crisp bite that clings to every surface, hides, stones, the woven mats that bow under the snow's weight. Lyre is awake, her silhouette hunched by the fire as she sorts the last of the herb stores, her fingers brushing over brittle leaves of nettle and yarrow, checking for mold's creep. Kren lies still, his breathing a shallow rhythm, the cough quieter but his frame frilier, as if winter leeches his strength with each passing night. Sanaa burrows deeper into her mother's furs, her small form shivering until Tor tucks an extra hide around her, her sleepy murmur a soft spark in the dimness. The band rouses slowly, faces etched with the cold's toll, Rock rubbing warmth into his hands, Mira unfolding a hide to check for tears, her breath fogging as she works. Breakfast is a meager rite, a thin paste of lichen and burdock root, warmed in the clay pot, its earthy bitterness cut by a single crushed sloe berry passed around like a sacrament. They eat in near silence, the fire's pop the only sound, their shared glances a thread of endurance woven through the hunger. Kren's voice breaks the quiet as the light strengthens, a rasp that carries the weight of winter survived. The ice holds, but we move when it breaks. The band nods, their stay in the valley of fragile pause, the promise of spring's thaw a distant hope. Tor takes charge of the day's tasks, his spear set aside for work that sustains their shelter. He and Rock venture into the snowbound copse, their steps sinking deep, the crunch of frost a steady beat underfoot. The snares yield nothing today, the voles too wise or too scarce, but they find a fallen branch, its wood dry enough to split for the fire. They drag it back, axes of flint and antler biting into the grain, the thwack echoing in the still air. The stream's ice is thicker now, a dull sheen that resists Tor's stone, but he chips a small hole, the water beneath a sluggish gift they carry back in gourds, each drop hoarded like a jewel. Mira and Lyre forage closer to the lean-to, their figures ghostly in the snow's veil, digging for roots that cling stubbornly beneath the frozen crust. They unearth a few cattail tubers, their starchy cores a promise of sustenance when boiled, and scrape frost-hardened moss from rocks for tinder. Sanaa trails them, her cloak dragging a faint trail in the snow, her hands clutching a stick she uses to poke at drifts, unearthing a frozen beetle that she studies with wide-eyed wonder. "It sleeps," she says, tucking it into her pouch as if it might wake come spring. The women return with baskets barely filled, their yield a testament to winter's grip, but they share a nod, enough for now, enough to hold. Within the lean-to, the band's work is a quiet symphony of survival. Tor sits with Kren, napping a new flint blade, the chip-chip a meditative pulse that steadies his hands. Kren's eyes guide the strikes, his voice low with tales of tools shaped in caves long abandoned, each blade a story of hunts won or lost. Mira stitches a new sole onto Rock's boots, her bone needle threading sinew through hide, while Lyre grinds cattail roots into a coarse flour, the mortar's rhythm a counterpoint to the wind's mournful howl. Sanaa and the other children huddle near the fire, twisting pine cords into bracelets, their giggles a fragile light against the gray. The shelter smells of fat and smoke, of earth and effort, the air heavy with the weight of their closeness. Noon offers no warmth, the sky a seamless shroud that presses the cold deeper into their bones. They pause to eat, a smear of cattail paste, its starch a dull comfort, shared from a wooden bowl warmed by the fire. Tor tells a story of a summer river, fish so thick they leapt into nets, his hands mimicking their silver dance. Sanaa adds her own twist, a fish that sang like a bird, her voice drawing soft chuckles that bloom like sparks. The meal ends with a sip of pine needle tea, its sharp warmth a fleeting shield against the chill. Afternoon brings a task of necessity, reinforcing the lean-to against the snow's weight. Tor and Rock pile fresh drifts around the base, packing them tight to seal the wind's probing fingers, their breath steaming as they work. Inside, Mira weaves a new mat to replace one frayed by the cold, her fingers nimble despite the frostbite. Lyre tends Kren, rubbing a salve of fat and nettle into his chest, the scent sharp and medicinal, her hands steady with care. The elder's gaze lingers on Tor, a silent weight that speaks of time's passage, of leadership looming closer. As dusk falls, the snow resumes, a heavy curtain that buries the valley deeper. Supper simmers in the clay pot, cattail tubers boiled to softness, flavored with a pinch of moss and the last of the vole's broth, its warmth a lifeline through the cold. They eat pressed close, the fire's amber glow painting their faces, stories rising like the steam. Kren speaks of a winter when the band followed a star's path to a valley of plenty, his hands tracing its arc in the air. Mira adds a memory of weaving under moonlight, the threads silver in her hands. Sanaa, nestled in Tor's lap, murmurs of a snow hare who guards their dreams, her voice fading into sleep's pull. Night seals the lean-to in a cocoon of frost. The snows fall a silent hymn that muffles the world. The band paints the shelter's stones, fingers warmed by the fire dipping into ochre and charcoal. Tor traces a cattail's stalk, its form swaying against the stone, while Lyre adds a jagged line of ice, sharp and unyielding. Sanaa's handprint, smeared with black, joins theirs, a tiny mark of presence. Kren's fingers linger on the stone, his touch a quiet blessing, the paintings a pulse of their survival. The fire banks to embers, a soft heartbeat in the dark. The band curls into furs, bodies pressed close, the snows hush a lullaby that drowns the valley's edges. Tor lies with Sanaa's warmth against him, her breaths a steady rhythm, the day's labors fading, the snare's silence, the root's hard-won gift, the fire's stubborn glow. The valley holds them in its frozen grip, vast and unyielding, yet softened by their shared defiance. Sleep rises, heavy as the snow, pulling him under with the promise of endurance. The valley dawn is a whisper, the sky a leaden veil that traps the world in gray, snowflakes drifting like ash from a forgotten fire. Tor wakes to the lean-to's chill, the furs heavy with frost, their edges crisp against his skin. His breath clouds in the dimness, a fleeting specter, as he shifts to tend the fire, its embers a faint pulse buried in ash. He feeds it with care, breaking twigs from the dwindling stack, their snap muffled by the cold. A flame catches, frail but stubborn, its warmth a thin shield against the valley's icy grip. The scent of burning pine, sharp and resinous, threads through the shelter, blending with the frost's metallic bite that clings to hides and stone, the woven mats sagging under snow's relentless press. Lyre kneels nearby, her fingers stiff as she sorts the last of the herb pouches, checking for dampness that could ruin their potency. Yarrow for wounds, nettle for strength, each leaf a fragile hope. Kren rests against a willow pole, his breathing a shallow rasp, the cough quieter but his eyes dimmer, as if winter siphons his life with each dawn. Sanaa stirs in her mother's furs, her small face pinched against the cold, murmuring as Tor tucks a warmed stone beneath her cloak, its heat drawing a sleepy smile. The band rouses slowly, shadows in the firelight. Rock shaking frost from his hair, Mira folding hides with deliberate care, her breath fogging in the air. Breakfast is a sparse ritual, a thin gruel of cattail flour, boiled to a starchy paste, its bitterness eased by a single dried berry passed hand to hand. They eat in silence, the fire's crackle a soft counterpoint to the snow's muffled fall outside, their shared glances a quiet vow to endure. Kren's voice, when it comes, is a threadbare echo in the lean-to's hush. The cold tests, but we hold. His words settle like snow, a reminder that survival is a daily bargain with the land. The valley, locked in ice, offers little, and the band's tasks turn inward, preserving what they have. Tor leads the morning's work, his spear untouched, replaced by the need to fortify their refuge. He and Rock venture into the copse, their steps sinking into drifts, the snows crunch a steady rhythm. The snares are empty, the voles vanished into winter's depths, but they find a frozen sapling, its wood brittle but dry. They hack it free with flint axes, the thud echoing in the still air, dragging it back to split for the fire. The stream's ice is a solid sheet now, unyielding to their stones, but Tor pries a crack wide enough to draw water, its chill a shock that numbs his hands, each gourd a hard-won prize. Mira and Lyre forage within the lean-to's shadow, their figures blurred by falling snow, digging for anything the frost has spared. They unearth a few frost-hardened tubers, their roots tough but edible when boiled, and scrape lichen from the willow's bark, its green-gray crust a promise of thin sustenance. Sanaa trails them, her cloak trailing a faint path, her stick poking at drifts to reveal a frozen acorn, its shell cracked but whole. She holds it up, eyes bright, and Lyre tucks it into her pouch, a small treasure for the pot. The women return with baskets barely lined. Their yield a testament to winter's austerity, but they share a nod, enough to stretch another day. Inside the lean-to, the band's work is a quiet weave of necessity. Tor sits with Kren, carving a bone needle from the hare's remains, the scrape of flint a steady pulse that grounds him. Kren's hands, though trembling, guide the angle, his voice a low murmur of winter's past, when bones became tools and hunger taught patience. Mira patches a hide cloak, her stitches tight against the cold's probing fingers, while Lyre grinds tubers into a coarse meal, the mortar's thump blending with the wind's low moan. Sanaa and the children huddle near the fire, braiding pine cords into nets, their fingers clumsy but eager, their giggles a faint warmth in the gray. The shelter smells of fat and frost, of earth and effort, the air thick with their shared breath. Noon brings no break in the clouds, the cold a weight that presses into bones. The band pauses to eat, a smear of tuber paste, warmed by the fire, its starch a dull anchor in empty bellies. Tor shares a memory of a summer hunt, a deer felled by a single dart, its meat feeding the band for days. Sanaa adds a flourish, a deer that danced before it fell, her voice sparking soft laughter. The meal ends with a sip of nettle tea, its bitter warmth a fleeting shield against the chill. Afternoon is for mending and preparing. Tor and Rock reinforce the lean-to, packing fresh snow against the walls to block the wind's bite, their hands numbing as they work. Inside, Mira weaves a new cord from dried reeds, her fingers steady despite the cold sting. Lyre tends Kren, rubbing a salve of fat and yarrow into his chest, the sharp scent cutting through the smoke. The elder's gaze lingers on Tor, a silent passing of trust, his frailty a reminder of time's march. As dusk falls, the snow thickens, a heavy veil that buries the valley deeper. Supper simmers in the clay pot. Tuber broth, thin but warm, flavored with lichen and a pinch of pine needles, its aroma a faint promise of fullness. They eat pressed close, the fire's glow painting their faces in amber, stories rising like the steam. Kren speaks of a winter when the band found a herd trapped in snow, their survival a gift from the land. Mira adds a tale of weaving under starlight, the threads glowing like rivers. Sanaa, curled in Tor's lap, murmurs of a snow spirit who guards the fire, her voice fading into sleep's pull. Night seals the lean-to in frost's embrace, the snows fall a silent hymn that drowns the world. The band paints the shelter's stones, fingers warmed by the fire dipping into ochre and charcoal. Tor traces a tuber's root, its form twisting against the stone, while Lyre adds a jagged line of frost, sharp and unyielding. Sanaa's handprint, smeared with red, joins theirs, a tiny mark of life. Kren's fingers press a faint print, his touch a quiet vow, the paintings a pulse of their defiance. The fire banks to embers, a soft heartbeat in the dark. The band curls into furs, bodies pressed close, the snows hush a lullaby that muffles all. Tor lies with Sanaa's warmth against him, her breaths a steady rhythm. The day's labor's fading, the snare's silence, the tuber's hard-won gift, the fire's stubborn glow. The valley holds them in its frozen palm, vast and unyielding, yet softened by their shared will. Sleep rises, heavy as the snow, pulling him under with the promise of another dawn. The valley dawn is a faint murmur, the sky a seamless shroud of gray that traps the world in a twilight hush. Tor wakes to the lean-to's biting chill, the furs stiff with frost, their edges crackling as he shifts. His breath clouds the air, a fleeting wisp, as he moves to tend the fire, its embers a barely their glow buried in ash. He coaxes them with care, feeding slivers of bark and pine needles, the flames stirring in hesitant flickers, their warmth a fragile counter to the cold's grip. The scent of burning wood, sharp and resinous, cuts through the frost's metallic tang, filling the shelter with a grounding warmth that clings to the woven mats and snow-dusted stones, where last night's ochre paintings, a tuber's twist, a jagged frost line, seem to pulse in the dim light. Lyre is already stirring, her fingers numb as she checks the herb pouches, sorting brittle leaves of willow bark and nettle, their faint green a promise against winter's toll. Kren lies bundled nearby, his breathing a shallow rasp, the cough softer but his frame frilier, as if each night leeches a piece of his strength. Sanaa curls tighter into her mother's furs, her small face pinched, murmuring as Tor slips a warmed stone beneath her cloak, its heat drawing a sleepy sigh. The band rouses slowly, shadows in the firelight. Rock brushing snow from his shoulders, Mira unfolding a hide to check for cracks, her breath fogging in the air. Breakfast is a sparse rite, a thin paste of cattail flour and lichen, warmed in the clay pot, its earthy bitterness eased by a single dried sloe berry passed hand to hand. They eat in near silence. The fires crackle a soft thread through the snow's muffled fall, their shared glances a vow to endure the lean days. Kren's voice, when it comes, is a faint echo in the lean-to's hush. The fire is life. Guard it. His words settle like snow, a reminder that survival hinges on the smallest acts. The valley, gripped by ice, offers little, and the band's tasks turn inward, preserving warmth and strength. Tor leads the morning's work, his spear set aside for chores that sustain their refuge. He and Rock venture into the copse, their steps sinking into drifts, the snows crunch a steady rhythm underfoot. The snares are empty again, the voles too scarce or too cunning, but they find a frozen branch, its wood dry enough to split for the fire. They hack it free with flint axes, the thud echoing in the still air, dragging it back to the lean-to. The stream's ice is a solid sheet, unyielding to their stones, but Tor chips a small hole, the water beneath a sluggish gift they carry in gourds, each drop a treasure against thirst's creep. Mira and Lyre forage close to the shelter, their figures blurred in the snow's veil, digging for roots that cling beneath the frozen crust. They unearth a few burdock tubers, their woody cores tough but sustaining, and scrape frost-hardened lichen from the willow's bark, its bitter yield a promise of thin sustenance. Sanaa trails them, her cloak dragging a faint path, her stick poking at drifts to reveal a frozen pine cone, its scales locked tight. She holds it up, eyes bright, and Mira tucks it into her pouch, a small treasure for the fire. The women return with baskets barely lined, their yield a testament to winter's grip, but they share a nod, enough to hold another day. Inside the lean-to, the band's work is a quiet weave of necessity. Tor sits with Kren, shaping a flint scraper, the chip-chip a meditative pulse that steadies his hands. Kren's eyes guide the strikes, his voice a low murmur of winters past, when hunger taught the band to boil bones for grease. Mira stitches a tear in Sanaa's cloak, her bone needle threading sinew through hide, while Lyre grinds burdock roots into a coarse meal, the mortar's thump blending with the wind's low wail. Sanaa and the children huddle near the fire, braiding pine cords into small nets, their giggles a faint warmth in the gray. The shelter smells of fat and frost, of earth and effort, the air heavy with their shared breath. Noon brings no break in the clouds, the cold a weight that seeps into bones. The band pauses to eat, a smear of burdock paste, warmed by the fire, its starch a dull anchor in empty bellies. Tor shares a memory of a summer hunt, a bison felled by a well-aimed spear, its meat a feast that filled the band with song. Sanaa adds a flourish, a bison that flew like a bird, her voice sparking soft laughter. The meal ends with a sip of willow bark tea, its bitter warmth a fleeting shield against the chill. Afternoon is for reinforcing their refuge. Tor and Rock pack fresh snow against the lean-to's walls, sealing gaps where the wind probes, their hands numbing as they work. Inside, Mira weaves a new cord from dried reeds, her fingers steady despite the cold sting. Lyre tends Kren, rubbing a salve of fat and nettle into his chest, the sharp scent cutting through the smoke. The elder's gaze lingers on Tor, a silent weight of trust, his frailty a reminder of time's march. As dusk falls, the snow thickens, a heavy curtain that buries the valley deeper. Supper simmers in the clay pot, burdock broth, thin but warm, flavored with lichen and a pinch of pine needles, its aroma a faint promise of fullness. They eat pressed close, the fire's glow painting their faces in amber, stories rising like the steam. Kren speaks of a winter when the band found a cave lit by glowing stones, their warmth a gift from the earth. Mira adds a tale of weaving under starlight, the threads silver in her hands. Sanaa, curled in Tor's lap, murmurs of a snow spirit who guards the fire, her voice fading into sleep's pull. Night seals the lean-to in frost's embrace, the snows fall a silent hymn that drowns the world. The band paints the shelter's stones, fingers warmed by the fire dipping into ochre and charcoal. Tor traces a burdock root, its form twisting against the stone, while Lyre adds a jagged line of ice, sharp and unyielding. Sanaa's handprint, smeared with red, joins theirs, a tiny mark of life. Kren's fingers press a faint print, his touch a quiet vow, the painting's a pulse of their defiance. The fire banks to embers, a soft heartbeat in the dark. The band curls into furs, bodies pressed close, the snows hush a lullaby that muffles all. Tor lies with Sanaa's warmth against him, her breaths a steady rhythm. The day's labors fading, the snare's silence, the root's hard-won gift, the fire's stubborn glow. The valley holds them in its frozen palm, vast and unyielding, yet softened by their shared will. Sleep rises, heavy as the snow, pulling him under with the promise of another dawn. The valley dawn creeps in like a thief, stealing through the lean-to's gaps with a pale, ghostly light that barely pierces the snow-laden clouds. Tor wakes to the bite of frost, the furs stiff and heavy, their edges rimed with ice that crackles as he shifts. His breath fogs the air, a fleeting wisp, as he moves to tend the fire, its embers a faint red pulse buried in ash. He feeds them with care, snapping brittle twigs from the dwindling pile, their crack muffled by the cold's weight. A flame stirs, frail but defiant, its warmth a thin shield against the valley's icy grip. The scent of burning pine, sharp and resinous, threads through the shelter, blending with the frost's metallic tang that clings to hides, stones, and the woven mats bowed under snow's relentless press. Lyre kneels nearby, her fingers numb as she sorts the last of the herb stores, checking for dampness that could rot their fragile remedies. Willow bark for fever, nettle for strength, each leaf a whisper of hope. Kren lies bundled in furs, his breathing a shallow rasp, the cough quieter but his frame frilier, as if winter carves away his vitality with each dawn. Sanaa stirs in her mother's arms, her small face pinched against the cold, murmuring as Tor tucks a warmed stone beneath her cloak, its heat drawing a sleepy sigh. The band rouses slowly, shadows in the firelight. Rock shaking frost from his cloak, Mira unfolding a hide to check for cracks, her breath clouding the air. Breakfast is a lean ritual, a thin gruel of lichen and burdock flour, warmed in the clay pot, its earthy bitterness softened by a single dried sloe berry passed hand to hand. They eat in near silence. The fires crackle a soft thread through the snow's muffled fall, their shared glances a vow to endure the lean days. Kren's voice, when it comes, is a faint echo in the lean-to's hush. The fire holds us. Keep it alive. His words settle like snow, a reminder that survival is a daily pact with the land. The valley, locked in ice, yields little, and the band's tasks turn inward, preserving warmth and strength. Tor leads the morning's work, his spear untouched, replaced by chores that sustain their refuge. He and Rock venture into the copse, their steps sinking into drifts, the snow's crunch a steady rhythm underfoot. The snares are empty again, the voles too scarce or too cunning, but they find a frozen branch, its wood dry enough to split for the fire. They hack it free with flint axes, the thud echoing in the still air, dragging it back to the lean-to. The stream's ice is a solid sheet, unyielding to their stones, but Tor chips a small hole, the water beneath a sluggish gift they carry in gourds, each drop a hard-won prize. Mira and Lyre forage close to the shelter, their figures blurred in the snow's veil, digging for roots that cling beneath the frozen crust. They unearth a few cattail tubers, their starchy cores tough but sustaining, and scrape frost-hardened lichen from the willow's bark, its bitter yield a promise of thin sustenance. Sanaa trails them, her cloak dragging a faint path, her stick poking at drifts to reveal a frozen acorn, its shell cracked but whole. She holds it up, eyes bright, and Lyre tucks it into her pouch, a small treasure for the pot. The women return with baskets barely lined, their yield a testament to winter's grip, but they share a nod, enough to hold another day. Inside the lean-to, the band's work is a quiet weave of necessity. Tor sits with Kren, shaping a flint scraper, the chip-chip a meditative pulse that steadies his hands. Kren's eyes guide the strikes, his voice a low murmur of winters past, when hunger taught the band to boil bones for grease. Mira stitches a tear in Sanaa's cloak, her bone needle threading sinew through hide, while Lyre grinds cattail roots into a coarse meal, the mortar's thump blending with the wind's low wail. Sanaa and the children huddle near the fire, braiding pine cords into small nets, their giggles a faint warmth in the gray. The shelter smells of fat and frost, of earth and effort, the air heavy with their shared breath. Noon brings no break in the clouds, the cold a weight that seeps into bones. The band pauses to eat, a smear of cattail paste, warmed by the fire, its starch a dull anchor in empty bellies. Tor shares a memory of a summer hunt, a deer felled by a single dart, its meat a feast that filled the band with song. Sanaa adds a flourish, a deer that danced before it fell, her voice sparking soft laughter. The meal ends with a sip of nettle tea, its bitter warmth a fleeting shield against the chill. Afternoon is for reinforcing their refuge. Tor and Rock pack fresh snow against the lean-to's walls, sealing gaps where the wind probes, their hands numbing as they work. Inside, Mira weaves a new cord from dried reeds, her fingers steady despite the cold sting. Lyre tends Kren, rubbing a salve of fat and yarrow into his chest, the sharp scent cutting through the smoke. The elder's gaze lingers on Tor, a silent weight of trust, his frailty a reminder of time's march. As dusk falls, the snow thickens, a heavy curtain that buries the valley deeper. Supper simmers in the clay pot, cattail broth, thin but warm, flavored with lichen and a pinch of pine needles, its aroma a faint promise of fullness. They eat pressed close, the fire's glow painting their faces in amber, stories rising like the steam. Kren speaks of a winter when the band found a herd trapped in snow, their survival a gift from the land. Mira adds a tale of weaving under starlight, the thread silver in her hands. Sanaa, curled in Tor's lap, murmurs of a snow spirit who guards the fire, her voice fading into sleep's pull. Night seals the lean-to in frost's embrace. The snows fall a silent hymn that drowns the world. The band paints the shelter's stones, fingers warmed by the fire dipping into ochre and charcoal. Tor traces a cattail stalk, its form swaying against the stone, while Lyre adds a jagged line of ice, sharp and unyielding. Sanaa's handprint, smeared with red, joins theirs, a tiny mark of life. Kren's fingers press a faint print, his touch a quiet vow, the paintings a pulse of their defiance. The fire banks to embers, a soft heartbeat in the dark. The band curls into furs, bodies pressed close, the snows hush a lullaby that muffles all. Tor lies with Sanaa's warmth against him, her breaths a steady rhythm. The day's labors fading, the snare's silence, the root's hard-won gift, the fire's stubborn glow. The valley holds them in its frozen palm, vast and unyielding, yet softened by their shared will. Sleep rises, heavy as the snow, pulling him under with the promise of another dawn. Shroud of gray that traps the world in a perpetual twilight. Tor wakes to the lean-to's biting chill, the furs stiff with frost, their edges crackling as he shifts beneath their weight. His breath clouds the air, a fleeting mist, as he moves to tend the fire, its embers a barely their glow buried in ash. He coaxes them with care, feeding slivers of bark and pine needles from the dwindling pile, their snap muffled by the cold's grip. A flame stirs, frail but stubborn, its warmth a thin shield against the valley's icy hold. The scent of burning pine, sharp and resinous, threads through the shelter, blending with the frost's metallic tang that clings to hides, stones, and the woven mats sagging under snow's relentless press. Lyre is already awake, her fingers numb as she sorts the last of the herb stores, checking for dampness that could rot their fragile remedies. Willow bark for fever, nettle for strength, each leaf a whisper of hope against winter's toll. Kren lies bundled nearby, his breathing a shallow rasp, the cough softer but his frame frailer, as if each dawn carves away a piece of his vitality. Sanaa stirs in her mother's furs, her small face pinched against the cold, murmuring as Tor tucks a warmed stone beneath her cloak, its heat drawing a sleepy sigh. The band rouses slowly, shadows in the firelight. Rock brushing frost from his shoulders, Mira unfolding a hide to check for cracks, her breath fogging in the air. Breakfast is a sparse ritual, a thin gruel of cattail flour and lichen, warmed in the clay pot, its earthy bitterness softened by a single dried sloe berry passed hand to hand. They eat in near silence, the fires crackle a soft thread through the snow's muffled fall, their shared glances a vow to endure the lean days. Kren's voice, when it comes, is a faint echo in the lean-to's hush. The fire is our heart. Keep it beating. His words settle like snow, a reminder that survival hinges on the smallest acts. The valley, locked in ice, yields little, and the band's tasks turn inward, preserving warmth and strength. Tor leads the morning's work, his spear untouched, replaced by chores that sustain their refuge. He and Rock venture into the copse, their steps sinking into drifts, the snows crunch a steady rhythm underfoot. The snares are empty again, the voles too scarce or too cunning, but they find a frozen sapling, its wood brittle but dry. They hack it free with flint axes, the thud echoing in the still air, dragging it back to split for the fire. The stream's ice is a solid sheet, unyielding to their stones, but Tor chips a small hole, the water beneath a sluggish gift they carry in gourds, each drop a hard-won prize. Mira and Lyre forage close to the shelter, their figures blurred in the snow's veil, digging for roots that cling beneath the frozen crust. They unearth a few burdock tubers, their woody cores tough but sustaining, and scrape frost-hardened lichen from the willow's bark, its bitter yield a promise of thin sustenance. Sanaa trails them, her cloak dragging a faint path, her stick poking at drifts to reveal a frozen pine cone, its scales locked tight. She holds it up, eyes bright, and Mira tucks it into her pouch, a small treasure for the fire. The women return with baskets barely lined, their yield a testament to winter's grip, but they share a nod, enough to hold another day. Inside the lean-to, the band's work is a quiet weave of necessity. Tor sits with Kren, shaping a flint scraper, the chip-chip a meditative pulse that steadies his hands. Kren's eyes guide the strikes, his voice a low murmur of winters past, when hunger taught the band to boil bones for grease. Mira stitches a tear in Sanaa's cloak, her bone needle threading sinew through hide, while Lyre grinds burdock roots into a coarse meal, the mortar's thump blending with the wind's low wail. Sanaa and the children huddle near the fire, braiding pine cords into small nets, their giggles a faint warmth in the gray. The shelter smells of fat and frost, of earth and effort, the air heavy with their shared breath. Noon brings no break in the clouds, the cold a weight that seeps into bones. The band pauses to eat, a smear of burdock paste, warmed by the fire, its starch a dull anchor in empty bellies. Tor shares a memory of a summer hunt, a deer felled by a single dart, its meat a feast that filled the band with song. Sanaa adds a flourish, a deer that danced before it fell, her voice sparking soft laughter. The meal ends with a sip of nettle tea, its bitter warmth a fleeting shield against the chill. Afternoon is for reinforcing their refuge. Tor and Rock pack fresh snow against the lean-to's walls, sealing gaps where the wind probes, their hands numbing as they work. Inside, Mira weaves a new cord from dried reeds, her fingers steady despite the cold sting. Lyre tends Kren, rubbing a salve of fat and yarrow into his chest, the sharp scent cutting through the smoke. The elder's gaze lingers on Tor, a silent weight of trust, his frailty a reminder of time's march. As dusk falls, the snow thickens, a heavy curtain that buries the valley deeper. Supper simmers in the clay pot, burdock broth, thin but warm, flavored with lichen and a pinch of pine needles, its aroma a faint promise of fullness. They eat pressed close, the fire's glow painting their faces in amber, stories rising like the steam. Kren speaks of a winter when the band found a herd trapped in snow, their survival a gift from the land. Mira adds a tale of weaving under starlight, the thread silver in her hands. Sanaa, curled in Tor's lap, murmurs of a snow spirit who guards the fire, her voice fading into sleep's pull. Night seals the lean-to in frost's embrace, the snows fall a silent hymn that drowns the world. The band paints the shelter's stones, fingers warmed by the fire dipping into ochre and charcoal. Tor traces a burdock root, its form twisting against the stone, while Lyre adds a jagged line of ice, sharp and unyielding. Sanaa's handprint, smeared with red, joins theirs, a tiny mark of life. Kren's fingers press a faint print, his touch a quiet vow, the paintings a pulse of their defiance. The fire banks to embers, a soft heartbeat in the dark. The band curls into furs, bodies pressed close, the snows hush a lullaby that muffles all. Tor lies with Sanaa's warmth against him, her breaths a steady rhythm. The day's labors fading, the snares silence, the root's hard-won gift, the fire's stubborn glow. The valley holds them in its frozen palm, vast and unyielding, yet softened by their shared will. Sleep rises, heavy as the snow, pulling him under with the promise of another dawn. The sun rises slowly over a rolling valley, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. You're a caveman, waking up on a bed of furs, nestled in a shallow cave carved into a hillside. The air smells of damp earth and pine. It's cool, but not cold, and the faint crackle of last night's fire lingers in the background. You stretch, your body strong from years of walking, climbing, and carrying. Life is simple, not easy, but steady, like the rhythm of your breath. Your day begins with the group, your family, your tribe. There are maybe 20 of you, men, women, and children, all working together. No one rushes. There's no clock, no deadlines, just the slow pulse of the day. You communicate with grunts, gestures, and a few words, simple sounds that carry meaning. You don't need many words. A nod, a point, a smile says enough. You feel connected, part of something bigger, like the stars that blanket the night sky. Food is your first task, as it is every day. You walk through the forest barefoot, feeling the soft moss and cool dirt under your feet. The women and children gather berries, fat, juicy ones that burst with sweetness. You can almost taste them now, tart and warm from the sun. The men, including you, track a deer. You move quietly, your steps blending with the rustle of leaves. Your spear is heavy in your hand, made of sharpened stone and sturdy wood. Hunting takes patience. Hours pass, but time feels different, slow, unhurried, like a river flowing gently. When the deer is caught, there's no waste. The meat is shared, the hide saved for clothing, the bones carved into tools. Back at the camp, the fire is stoked, and the smell of roasting meat fills the air. You sit in a circle, the flames casting a warm glow on everyone's faces. Someone hums a low, repetitive tune, no words, just a melody that feels ancient, comforting. You chew slowly, savoring the smoky flavor, and feel the weight of the day settle into your bones. Life as a caveman isn't all work. There's time to rest, to sit by the river and watch the water flow. You notice things, the way a bird flits from branch to branch, the way clouds drift lazily across the sky. You don't have a name for every plant or animal, but you know them by their shapes, their smells, their patterns. The world feels alive, and you're part of it, woven into its rhythm like a thread in a vast tapestry. At night, you gather in the cave again. The children curl up close, their soft breathing a steady hum. Someone tells a story, not with words, but with gestures and drawings on the cave wall, lit by the flickering fire. It's a tale of a great hunt, or maybe a storm that passed through long ago. The lines of charcoal and ochre seem to dance in the light, and your eyelids grow heavy as you watch. The stars outside are endless, a glittering blanket above the dark forest. You don't understand them, but they feel like friends, always there, always watching. The air grows cooler, and you pull your fur closer, sinking deeper into the softness. The fire pops softly, and the world feels safe, quiet, still. Being a caveman is hard. Yes, cold winters, long hunts, the occasional scrape or bruise. But it's also simple. No worries about tomorrow's plans or yesterday's mistakes. Just this moment, this breath, this warmth. You close your eyes, and the sounds of the night, crickets, wind, the distant howl of a wolf, carry you gently into sleep. The cave is quiet now, save for the soft crackle of the dying fire and the steady breathing of your tribe. You wake as the first light of dawn creeps in, painting the rocky walls in shades of gold and gray. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of dew-soaked grass and distant pine. You rise slowly, your body accustomed to the weight of the day ahead. There's no rush, no urgency, just the familiar pull of another day in this vast, untamed world. You step outside, and the valley stretches before you, bathed in mist. The hills roll like sleeping giants, their slopes dotted with trees that sway gently in the breeze. A bird calls, its song high and clear, like a melody played on a reed flute. You breathe deeply, feeling the cool air fill your chest, grounding you in this moment. Your tribe begins to stir behind you, their movements slow and deliberate, like the unfolding of a flower in the morning sun. Today, the group has work to do, but it's not a burden. It's just life, woven into the fabric of your days. You join the women and children by the river, where they're gathering reeds to weave into baskets. The water gurgles softly, a constant, soothing sound that blends with the chatter of the children. You kneel beside them, your hands moving instinctively, pulling long, flexible reeds from the muddy bank. The texture is smooth, cool, almost silky under your fingers. You smile as a child tugs at your arm, pointing to a frog that hops into the water with a quiet splash. You laugh, a low, rumbling sound, and the child giggles, their eyes bright with joy. The baskets you weave are simple but strong, perfect for carrying berries, roots, or the small, smooth stones you find by the riverbed. You don't think about how long it takes. Time is measured by the sun's arc across the sky, not by hours or minutes. The work feels good, like a dance your hands know by heart. You pause to watch the water, its surface catching the light like a mirror. A fish darts beneath, quick and silver, and you make a mental note to set a trap later. For now, though, you're content to sit, to weave, to listen to the world around you. Later, you join the men on a trek into the forest. The trees tower above, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind. You're searching for flint, sharp, glassy stones to shape into tools. Your eyes scan the ground, trained to spot the telltale glint of the right rock. The forest is alive with sound, the rustle of small animals, the creak of branches, the distant call of a hawk. You move quietly, your bare feet finding soft paths between roots and stones. The earth feels like an old friend, familiar and steady beneath you. One of the younger men finds a good flint, and you gather around, chipping it carefully with a hammerstone. The work is slow, precise, almost meditative. Each strike sends a soft clink into the air, and flakes of stone fall like tiny petals. You shape a blade, its edge sharp enough to cut through hide or carve wood. There's pride in this work, not loud or boastful, but quiet, like the satisfaction of a meal well earned. You tuck the blade into a leather pouch at your side, knowing it will serve the tribe well. Back at the camp, the fire is burning strong, tended by an elder who hums as she works. The smell of roasting roots mixes with the smoky tang of venison from yesterday's hunt. You sit cross-legged on the ground, sharing the meal with the others. The children play nearby, chasing each other in circles, their laughter rising like sparks into the air. You chew slowly, savoring the earthy sweetness of the roots, the richness of the meat. Someone passes you a handful of berries, and their tartness bursts on your tongue, bright and alive. You feel full, not just in your stomach, but in your heart, surrounded by your people, your home. As the sun dips low, painting the sky in hues of lavender and gold, the tribe gathers in the cave. The fire casts long shadows, and the walls seem to glow with warmth. One of the elders begins to paint, using a stick dipped in red ochre. She draws the outline of a bison, its curves bold and sure. The children watch, wide-eyed, as the animal comes to life on the stone. You don't know why she paints, but it feels important, like a way of honoring the world you live in. The lines seem to pulse with a quiet magic, and you feel your eyelids grow heavy as you watch. Someone begins to hum, a low, repetitive sound that feels like the heartbeat of the earth. Another joins in, then another, until the cave is filled with a soft, wordless song. You lean back against the wall, the cool stone grounding you, the fur soft beneath you. The fire pops gently, and the hum of the tribe wraps around you like a blanket. Outside, the night is vast, the stars endless. But here, in this moment, you are safe, warm, connected. Life as a caveman is not always easy. There are days of hunger, nights of cold, moments of fear when the wind howls or a predator prowls too close. But there is also beauty, simple, profound beauty, in the rhythm of the days, the bond of the tribe, the quiet wonder of the world. You close your eyes, and the hum of the song carries you, like a leaf on a gentle stream. The fire's warmth lingers on your skin, the stars wait patiently outside, and sleep creeps in, soft